Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me. Lovely to meet you for the first time.
Likewise.
I know you're going to be taking the seat of, or you're looking to replace Senator Sinema.
Yes.
Going in, I mean, we've heard Republicans talk about her as she's announced that she is not looking for a second term, that she has been a very effective senator in her first term, just in terms of the amount of legislation she's worked on. When it comes to you taking on that baton, how do you feel about your approach when it comes to becoming a leader and not a bench warmer in the Senate?
I think that's exactly why I'm in this, because I look sometimes at DC and I think, wow, we send these people there, we vote for them. They get there and they don't even remember what they campaigned on when they were back at home. And I want to go there and remember exactly what I campaigned on, which is turning this nightmare around, securing the border, making our streets safe, and making our economy strong. And so I want to go there and be effective. I'm not going to DC because I want a career in politics. I don't. I frankly want to go in, get the work done, and come back home to my life here in Arizona. But we have to go there and get the work done. And I've seen too many people who go there and just want to be politicians. And we need to get those kind of people out. That's who I'm running against, somebody who just wants to be a lifelong lifer politician, and get people in there who are moms, who've led a real normal life, who want to go in and get some work done, and then come back home. I don't want people to go to DC forever. That's not how our founding fathers set this thing up. They never envisioned anybody would want to go to DC and stay there forever. So I do plan to get things done. I plan to be a mover and shaker and do that for the people of Arizona.
When it comes to being in DC, we know that compromise is part of the game, and unfortunately, a lot of the priorities that you have may not all make it to the finish line. So if you have to choose a top three, what would you say your top three priorities are?
Number one is going to be border, because it's national security and safety in our communities, and the economy. Right now, everywhere I go, talking to people in Arizona, they say, I can't afford the groceries when I go to the grocery store, and guess what? I don't feel safe walking across the grocery store parking lot anymore. So we have to tackle both of those. The border has many tentacles. The border, obviously, we have an invasion at the border. Millions of people have poured across. Our taxpayer dollars are going to house them, feed them, and set them up. Meanwhile, we have Americans struggling. But the border also means being wide open. Drugs are pouring in, getting into the hands of our young people. I've met so many moms and dads who've lost a son, 19-year-old son, a 20-year-old daughter, and they don't get those babies back. They don't get their kids back. We got to secure that border. This is not because we're uncompassionate. We're actually the most compassionate people on the planet here in America. But this is not compassionate to our own people, leaving that border open. And it's affecting our economy as well. So those two are really big. I'm so concerned right now for a couple of groups in our population. One, the young people. My daughter is almost 21, she'll be 21 in a couple days. My son is 19, and they say, Mom, we're doing everything right, but I don't know that we'll ever be able to afford a home. Heck, maybe not even be able to afford a car anymore. How do we live the American dream? I'm concerned about that group. Even if they do everything right, it's going to be hard to get ahead and have that security in this economy. And I'm really concerned about people who are nearing retirement, or frankly in retirement, who did everything right their whole life. They paid into their taxes, they paid into Social Security, and now they're looking at that little nest egg they put together, and they say, it's not going to get me through because of Joe Biden's inflation, and Ruben Gallego's inflation, frankly. The Biden inflation, Biden economics is not working. And so I met a woman who was almost 90, not too long ago. She was, or not, almost 80 rather. She was about to turn 80 when she looked phenomenal, by the way. And she said, Kari, I don't think I'm going to make it through the rest of my retirement and be able to survive. And I don't think anybody wants to hire an 80-year-old. And I was just blown away by that. First of all, you shouldn't have to be worried at 80 to go back into the workforce. This Biden economy, the Democrat economy, is not working. We need to get back to an economy that does work for all people. And whether you loved him or hated him, President Trump got it. That Trump economy made sure that everybody in the population, no matter what their skin color, what their background, what their political affiliation, was doing better. So let's get back to that, something that works. Those are my priorities.
And then I know that there's many more beyond that. I've seen your website and everything, but the top three there, yeah. You talked about economy. I know that we just saw that the Congress has once again kicked the can down the road in terms of its spending. So that's the thing that, we hear in DC, we don't want to do this, but every year they do approve those changes. Mm-hmm. If you were in charge of it and you're part of that conversation, what would you be in support of reducing in the budget or in our government spending, and maybe what would you advocate for?
Well, I mean, we're at like 34 trillion, more than that now, in deficit. Can you imagine a household living? First of all, if you lived the way our government lives, all of your credit cards would be shut off. You'd be kicked out of your house and you'd be on the street. I mean, you can't survive with this kind of spending. We can't survive as a country with this kind of spending, and so, but we can't just cut our way out of it. I mean, there's such a deficit. Cutting our way out of it's not going to work. We need to start growing our way out of it. And unfortunately, Joe Biden made it worse when he came in on day one. It ended the Keystone XL pipeline. That caused so many high-paying jobs to go away. The Democrats have been for shipping manufacturing overseas. The Democrats, and frankly a few Republicans, have been for exporting all of our great American companies over to where they can operate on pennies on the dollar. And that means when they do that, our good high-paying jobs go away as well. High-paying, good jobs are needed for the American people, and we can bring those back when we reshore American companies. I think Arizona is uniquely positioned to take some of that reshoring of companies. Companies do want to come back. We did not punish them when they want to come back, and we need to realize that when those companies come back, they're going to be hiring tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Americans who need jobs, not just service industry jobs where they're making minimum wage, but jobs where they're making enough money to feed a family, to put a down payment on a house. And then the benefit for the government is more tax revenues are coming in. So it's going to have to be, we cut, but we also grow our way out of this mess.
Talking about that investment in our economy here in Arizona, we saw President Biden here last week. He's talking about Intel and the CHIPS Act. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you would have supported had you been in Congress?
I do support the CHIPS Act. I mean, we're going to be the hub for chips making, processing. The problem is, in typical Biden fashion, he screws things up. Hate to say it, but he's messing things up. And when they tied all that DEI stuff, diversity, equity, and inclusion, somebody said the other day it means didn't earn it. When they tie all of that to it and they force a chips maker to hire people based on just things that aren't about merit, they don't want to do it. There are all of these companies that want to take that money and relocate and start up a business here and grow in the chips manufacturing world are saying, we look at all of these regulations, we're going to pass on that. We've got to pull that away. We've got to pull all that DEI stuff away and just say, are we going to be a hub for chip processing or not? Or are we going to be a hub for wokeness? And wokeness is going to destroy our country.
I know you've mentioned inflation. It's on the minds of anyone who's buying groceries, frankly. It's, the prices are, I think everyone's feeling those in their pocketbooks right now. But how much do you think is it when it comes to inflation versus corporate greed? Because just to kind of take you through some of the stats we have here right now. In Cargill, we saw corporate profits were rising to $165 billion in 2022, up from the previous year. Tyson Foods doubled profits in 2022. The Walmart family had their wealth increase by $8.8 billion between 2020 and 2022. So I think those are times where we really felt that in our pockets, and seeing those companies just have record profits and shrinkflation at the same time. I mean, how much can be done, do you think, about that?
Well, I think for a long time, all those companies that you mentioned, these multinational corporations, they've got lots of lobbyists in D.C. And these lobbyists get there and they bribe and cajole all these members of Congress to vote where they're only supporting that segment of the business community. I care about mid-sized businesses, small businesses that, Americans have set up. And so we need to make sure we're looking at that. And one of the concerns is coming into January of 25, right around Inauguration Day, is many of the Trump tax cuts for small businesses. If you got an LLC behind your business, and many Arizonans have that, those tax cuts are going to jump back up. They're going to go away. And I don't know how many people who run a business, whether it be a one-man business with just, you're running it alone, or you've got 100 people, a smaller business, how many of them can afford a 25-30% tax increase right away? That's what we're going to get if Ruben Gallego becomes our senator. He will not vote to keep those tax cuts that Trump brought us. So we've got to make sure, if you're a business person and you're worried, let me know, can you afford a 30% tax increase? I don't know many people who can right now. And so we got to work on that. Yes, there is a lot of corporate greed. These, multi-billionaires, and they raise the prices. With inflation, the problem is when inflation goes down, the costs never seem to go down. Have you noticed that? Oh wow, with the price of this went up during inflation. Okay, the rate came back down, but the price of that is still really high. And we're all feeling the effects of that. And so we need to start looking at small businesses, and are we helping them? Because that's how we grow our economy, through small businesses, not just a few multinational corporations.
Would you anticipate seeing, during this time where you're in a period of raising money, ever taking donations from those larger businesses like that?
You mean like PAC donations? I mean,
yeah.
I'm so blessed. I have, the media doesn't necessarily give me a fair shake, but the people get it. They get that I'm for them. I'm for the people. I'm not in this for personal gain at all. I'm not gaining anything. I'm in this for the people. And we have the second highest number of small donors on our campaign. I think in our governor's race we had like 215 or 250,000 individual donors. I can't even keep track of where they were. Some of them were moms who would send me $20 and say, we can't afford more than this. We're following you. Thank you for fighting for us. They'd send me little pictures that their 5- and 7-year-old drew for me. Warmed my heart, because my kids, doesn't seem like it was too long ago, they were 5 and 7. And so I have a lot of that, but I might also have max donors who maybe they do run a business or work for a corporation. And they care also about the economy. I'm not going to say I'm not going to take someone's donation if they care about and they see the campaign we're running and they say, wow, she's really working to put America first. She's working to put Arizona first. If you want to make a donation to my campaign, you can go to karilake.com/donate and make that donation. I'm happy to accept a donation if somebody is watching our campaign saying we like the direction she's leading her campaign and that she'd like to lead this country.
I don't want to ignore your second point that you're passionate about, which is the border. I know that it's on the minds of many people here in Arizona and across the country.
Let me say one more thing in this.
Yes.
Second in small donors, second only to President Donald J. Trump. So there's some movement going on here in Arizona, and the media might want to deny it, but there's a movement going on with people who've never been involved in politics. Most of the letters we get, they're not just a check, here's a donation. It is a letter. You inspire me. Your campaign inspires me. I lost my child to fentanyl poisoning, or I lost my job because my company had to shut down and they stopped hiring people. People are suffering right now, and they see our campaign. They see me as someone who wants to go to D.C. and not be beholden to lobbyists, not be bribable. They've already tried to bribe me, and I told them to pound sand. I'm going to go and work for the people, and that's why there's so much pushback on people like me and President Trump.
Speaking of the border, just to get back to that, I know that that's important to you and many people here in Arizona. Aspects of your 10-point border plan, reading through that, being familiar with the bipartisan border plan, I do see similarities between some of them, some of the things that you're looking for and some of the things that were proposed in that. So you've been to the border, you've talked about how bad it is, you've seen how bad it is down there. Why support putting the people down there through another year of what they're experiencing when it comes to the border?
So why didn't I support that?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, another year is going to be painful. I didn't want to put them through a lifetime of that, what they're seeing now, being permanent. And that piece of legislation was so disastrous, we would have seen a permanent situation, permanent invasion. That was I forget, it was $130 billion. It was more than that. 130, I think. I might be off.
Remembering the number.
Right around there, $1 billion border plan that had $0 to build the wall. The cheapest way to secure that border is to finish the wall at the border. There was a big, huge goose egg, $0 for that in that border bill. Meanwhile, there's $95 billion to be sent overseas to kill people. I don't believe the people of Arizona are for that. I want true border security. And we could have had it much smaller. First thing they should have done is said, let's set aside between 5 and 15 billion. You can look at the estimates. I know that's a wide range, but from what I'm hearing, it'd be 5 to 15, probably closer to 15 billion to build that wall. That should be just a super simple 1 or 2 page piece of legislation. Here's the money, and we want to expedite the building of the border wall. That is what our lawmakers in D.C. should be doing. Not some big piece of legislation that's 500, 1,000 pages of a bunch of nonsense. Where what they want to do, and what my opponent Ruben Gallego wants to do, is he wants to actually send hundreds of billions to the border communities and to the border and to these NGOs who are part of the problem in bringing people here, to continue to process them faster. I have news for Ruben. The people of Arizona and the people of America don't want to keep processing people pouring across illegally faster. They actually want to process them and send them back to their homeland. And that's what we're going to do. The states have to start stepping up right now until Joe Biden's out of office. When President Trump gets back in office, when I get to the U.S. Senate, we are going to quickly stop this invasion at our border. And in order to save our homeland, we're going to have to send the people who've invaded our country back to their homeland in the largest repatriation program this country's ever seen. And we're going to make those countries pick up the tab.
I'm sure you've spoken, though, with people at the border about that plan, and I've done so over the last couple of months. And the overall message I was hearing was, this may not be a perfect plan, but we need something. I mean,
but it's gonna hurt them in the long run. It's gonna mean that we're gonna take millions and millions of people illegally continuing forever. And I don't think they realize how complex and how terrible this piece of legislation is. And frankly, the media doesn't go down and explain it. So when you ask, do you support a border bill that would have helped you? Well, naturally someone's gonna go, oh, if it helped, yeah. But what you're not explaining is how it's going to cement and codify into law forever the invasion of our country by millions of people every year.
I'll clear up my statement on that. I wasn't speaking with just everyday voters, who I do believe are very informed, of course, but these are border mayors who are very clear about what's in the legislation and are still supportive of it.
Well, I've talked to border mayors who don't like what's going on, and we're not going to codify into law. First of all, this is a moot point. This is an absolute moot point and a waste of time, because it's a piece of legislation that they recognize was dead on arrival. It was poorly written, and it didn't do anything to secure the border, and it sent another $95 billion over to kill people overseas. Now, I'm not sure when you talk to those mayors, if you said, look, we can send money down here to process people coming over illegally, because I've talked to Democrat mayors who are saying, we got to stop it. And those Democrat mayors, if you were to say to them, and also we're going to spend $95 billion overseas to kill people, are you okay with that? You want to spend more money in Ukraine? They would say no. Why are we even looping Ukraine into securing our border? Why are we trying to build a border wall in Ukraine with this money in this piece of legislation, but we don't want to build a border wall in Arizona? It doesn't make sense. We're not going to codify into law a bunch of bad ideas because a couple of senators want to get credit for putting together a border legislation that does nothing for our border. It should have been called the Ukraine Border Act, because that's what it did. It did more for Ukraine's border than our southern border.
And I'm hearing where you're coming from on this, and just to wrap up the point, since I know we have a lot to talk about.
Well, the point, to wrap it up,
yeah.
It's a moot point.
Yes.
And by moot, it doesn't matter, because that legislation's gone, dead, and over with. Thank God, because that legislation would have made the problem worse at the border and would have sent our hard-earned treasure over to Ukraine and to start wars overseas, when in reality, people are suffering here. People are suffering here. DC's full of terrible ideas. The whole infrastructure plan that Ruben Gallego likes to brag about, you know what it built here in Arizona? We have crumbling roads, by the way. I mean, drive down Camelback, it's like a gravel road in some places. Drive up from Williams, Arizona to the Grand Canyon, one of our most important roads, by the way, and they call it a death trap up there. That's where many of our tourists end up taking that road to go to the Grand Canyon, one of the 7 wonders of the world. Why didn't they widen that and improve that road? But no, what they got out of the infrastructure plan and what that they tout is a couple of footpaths on a bridge to nowhere. And so DC's full of bad ideas. And just because they give it a nice, cute name, the legislation, doesn't mean we should sign it and, cement it into law. And I'm tired of that, and people of Arizona are tired of that. From now on, we want to pass legislation that solves our problems with common sense solutions. And that's what I want to go to DC and do.
So just to wrap that up, and this could be a one-word answer, yes or no, but that's not something you would vote for then in DC next year, should it arise again?
Hell no.
Okay, good. Wait, just be clear about that.
To clean that up, no. But what I will support any piece of legislation that is super simple and super clean, that builds the border wall and allows our Border Patrol to do their job, stop people, detain them, and then we're eventually send them back across the border. You don't get to break into our country. These people who are coming in, none of them are being vetted. And the ones we catch that we find out are terrorists, part of terror cells. We know here in the Valley, and actually all over the country, by the way. This is happening in California. You talk to people there. We have criminals, professional burglar gangs that are coming in from Chile and breaking into people's homes. They've even given them the nickname the dinnertime bandits. They're breaking in, and before someone's security alarm can go off, before the police can show up, they're in and out, and they've robbed you blind, and they move on to the next house. It's only a matter of time before a mom comes home from the grocery store with her little ones and walks into her home and is face to face with these people. I don't want to see another American die at the hands of someone here illegally. It breaks my heart. I imagine myself being in that position where I walk in, my arms full of groceries, and my children next to me helping me carry in the groceries, and there's a bunch of gang members breaking into our home. This is happening in Arizona right now. That piece of garbage legislation would have done nothing to stop that. Actually, it would continue to make it happen.
I want to talk with you about abortion. I know it's on the minds of people. It's looking like that petition will end up making it onto the ballot this year, and it will be the constitutional amendment in November. How has that impacted your campaigning this year with it being on so many minds?
I don't know that it really has. I mean, I've stated my position clearly. I want to help as many women. I am a woman. I care about women's health. I care about women in general. I'm the youngest of 9. We have 8 girls in our family. I have a daughter, so I care deeply. I just want to make sure that women have more options so they're making a healthier choice. And I want to save as many babies as possible. But guess what? I'm running for U.S. Senate. That is not something that I have a say in other than a vote. I'm running for U.S. Senate, and I have said I would not pass or introduce or vote for a federal abortion ban. I believe we fought to push this back to the state level. And what I want to see is more women to be able to feel that they can have a baby and take care of it. If you ask your mom or your cameraman's mom or any mom watching what is the greatest achievement, joy, accomplishment in her life, the thing she's most proud of, if you ask any mother watching this, she'll say it's being a mother. I just want women to have that option, to know that that is a true option. They can attain that. And I don't want when they're at this low point or tragic, difficult point, they walk into an abortion clinic to only have one choice. And frankly, that's what they're given, one choice. There's help out there, and I want them to know about that. And so I'm going to do whatever I can in the U.S. Senate to make sure that we're supporting families. Republicans for a long time have talked a lot about being pro-life, but they haven't been necessarily working to say we're pro-family. And so once you do bring that beautiful life into the world, how are we helping to support you so that that family can strengthen and grow? Our country is only as strong as the most important institution. And the most important institution is the family, and the family is struggling right now, in many cases crumbling. And families that are keeping it together are struggling because of Democrat policies when it comes to their dismal economic policies, making it where mom and dad have to get 2 jobs, and then maybe they have to, drive Uber Eats at night. I want you to have one job and be able to be with your family. I want you to be able to make a living and not have to be, once you bring a family into the world, having to work 2 and 3 jobs. So I want to do things in D.C. to help so that families can grow, flourish, and then our country grows.
Your approach to this issue, when you talk about this, even right now, you talk about this as an issue about the mother and the child and the family.
Yeah.
We know, you're a mother, that when that 9 months is over, that is not the end, that's just the beginning. So what is your plan to support birth and support children after they're born?
I think I want to see a cultural shift where we see families as a wonderful thing. It really is. Ask anybody who's got a family, and they'll tell you it's the greatest joy in the world. Is it easy? No. It's not easy. It's difficult, it's hard, but it's rewarding. And it is truly, even when everything else is going wrong, you get home to your family and you go, I'm so blessed to have this family. So let's make sure there's a child tax credit, and let's start it when you're pregnant. Let's make sure that moms know the support's going to be there. We tax the hell out of families. Because you know what? Moms, single moms, dads, families don't have a bunch of lobbyists fighting for them. They don't. You talked about the big, multinational corporations. They've got a team of lobbyists. They might even have a lobbying shop set up in D.C. But moms and dads who are struggling and saying, oh no, I have to get a second job now. Who's going to be home with the kiddos to help them with their homework? I got to work 3 days a week from 5 until 8. I hope I can get home and get them to bed. I don't want families to have to do that. I'm going to be that lobbying arm for the family. I'm going to go and work and make every decision for the people of this great state to grow our families, to strengthen our families. If our families are crumbling, our state's going to crumble, our country's going to crumble. And right now, the foundation is shaky right now with our families. I want to strengthen that.
Last question.
I have 2 more, if that's okay.
Okay.
We can do 2 more? Okay.
They come quick.
Yes, I can do that, no problem. You've talked in the last couple of months about bringing in moderates, Republicans who maybe didn't want to vote for Trump, even Democrats, bring them to your side. Many of your policy positions, from what I've been able to tell, haven't changed since the last election. You've been rather consistent. So how do you plan to bring them over?
My policies were phenomenal. That wasn't the problem. I mean, my policies were phenomenal. My policies are putting America first. And that means making for a strong border, a strong economy, schools that are actually teaching a really good world-class education, including trade skill training and career training right there in high school, so that our kids are getting out of high school ready to take on jobs that are out there. Not saying, okay, I don't have any ability right now, I need to go out and learn another skill. And so my policies already appealed to Republicans, Democrats, Independents. That's the beauty of America First. You didn't have to love President Trump to say, wow, the economy was doing better. Unemployment rates were low in every sector, no matter what your skin color was or your background. That's what we're going to get back to. So my policies appeal to all Arizonans, and I'm going to continue to tell people that we do have the ability to solve these problems. This is not, I know I'm not alone when I wake up in the middle of the night, and maybe you do too, and say, ooh, what's going to happen tomorrow? The world seems to be out of control. America's got so many problems. But I also know that when we get together, we come together, not just as Republicans. I don't want just Republicans solving the problems. I want Americans solving the problems. When we come together and we put common sense solutions, set forth common sense solutions, we can solve these problems and do so quickly. I've always been reaching out to all Republicans. I've always been reaching out to independents. I was just in the airport and I met a great man and he said, I'm a Hispanic Democrat and I voted for you and I'm going to vote for you again. And so we're bringing people together. I don't pay attention to what the media is saying. They want to act like, oh my gosh, there's no unity. There's a ton of unity in America right now. I'm a national name right now and I understand wherever I go, people say, we're with you, we're with President Trump, we want to bring our country back. I don't care if you have an R behind your name, an I behind your name, a D behind, I frankly have an F behind my name, and that stands for Fed Up Mom. And I know there's millions just like me out there, fed up with the politicians in D.C. doing nothing to enact policies that actually improve our country and improve our neighborhoods. So we're going to do that when I get there.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask about news of the day, and I know it's top of mind for a lot of people, which is your legal team filing for the default judgment yesterday, also looking for damages to be determined. Clearly, Stephen Richer has taken that as a win in his case, seeing that he's been tweeting about it, and I've been seeing him say that this is you admitting fault in a way. Yeah. I want to give you the chance to respond
I'd love to. Well, first of all, I wish that he would be respectful of that he's on he's on taxpayer time. When you're working down there, to be tweeting all day is not very respectful to the taxpayer who's paying your salary. You should be working, not tweeting all day. This is lawfare. The people of this country understand. We're watching what's happening with President Trump, 4 different jurisdictions, all the garbage he's going through. Lawfare is when our courts and legal system is weaponized to go against a political opponent. And they're doing the same thing to me with this case. And the reason they do lawfare, and they've got a team, about a dozen lawyers from D.C. and New York, many of them with ties to George Soros, Hillary Clinton, Obama. It's a very political process, and they're trying to stop me because they're so worried about our movement. And so the punishment is in that process. And I decided, let's skip right over the process. When everything I've ever said about the elections is true, and I stand by it. But we're going to skip right over it and go right to the damages. What are the damages for my words? What are the damages? And he's going to have to prove that in court. what are the damages? Put a dollar sign behind it. What are the damages of freedom of speech? And so we're going to continue to fight it. I'm fighting it, and I'll never give up. But I'm not going to allow a bunch of DC, New York, and Massachusetts lawyers to come out here and try to take my Senate campaign, get me bogged down in lawfare for 7 months, and in a way take the candidate they want, which is a socialist by the name of Ruben Gallego, and give him the seat because they've tried to keep me off the campaign trail. There's too much on the line right now. So all I'm doing is saying, let's jump right ahead. How did my words hurt you? Put a dollar sign to that. And I'll leave it at that because we're still in the courts.
And you've said you're concerned that that case, that defamation case, it could kind of break a dam in a way and allow more defamation cases to be brought against
it's
people.
really sad. It's really sad that this man who filed the case cares so little about freedom of speech. He even said recently, and we saw it in some emails, that freedom of speech is a thorn in his side. They want to censor us, and I'm not for censorship. And so that'll be something that we'll lay at his feet. That will be something that we'll lay at his feet. When we don't have our freedom of speech anymore, and you can't go to your child's school board meeting without worrying about being sued by somebody who's pushing something that you disagree with as a parent, without worrying about being sued for defamation, you can go back to this fellow and say, why did you do that? He did it to try to CYA.
But would a default judgment not almost encourage more of those? Because you're not fighting it at this point.
Listen, they want me to spend $3 million fighting this case, and they want me to spend every day off the campaign trail. And this seat in the U.S. Senate is too important to this country. And so we're going right to, all right, put up or shut up. Show us where the damage is. Where did my words hurt you? Show me where my words hurt you. Show me where my freedom of speech hurt you. And you put a dollar sign on that. And he's going to have to live with that. I feel 100% comfortable. Everything I've ever said about our elections is true. Our elections are run like they're run in a banana republic. And I want every Arizona vote that is legal to count. And I'm fighting, and I'm standing up. I'm taking hits. I get up every day, and I do it again because I want my children's future to be there. I want their vote to count. I want your vote to count. I don't want a bunch of illegal votes counting. And so I'm going to continue to fight for the people of this state. They know it. They know me. I've been in their homes for 30 years, and they know that I'm a fighter. I'm going to D.C., and I'm going to fight every day for the people of Arizona. And I'm not going to surrender any more hills because we're about to lose our country. And so I'm a fighter, and they know it. I've not surrendered. I've not admitted any guilt. All I've said is I said those statements, absolutely, and guess what? They're all true.
I know we're far past our time, so I'll go ahead and wrap that up.
Thank
you for your time.
Pleasure.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Yes.